everybody, it's Amanda from LHL. I want to talk to you today about prototyping for organizing, and to me this is a really important step. I use it all the time for myself. I don't use it very much for clients, but I do a lot of times in a consultation give a recommendation that is essentially prototyping. So for instance, a potential client wanted to or was considering making a whole bank wall of cabinetry, and she had a very big filing cabinet and some shelves, and I'm like, well, you might want to just mock this up to see whether it feels like it encloses the space too much for you, because it was actually a small footprint room, but it had very tall ceilings, and so the room appeared to be big while it wasn't actually as big. And so I recommended to her that, you know, maybe what we want to do is move this filing cabinet out here, move these shelves this way, even pull them out from the wall to kind of represent where the system would be. And then just live with it for a little while you're working on decluttering, and determine whether you actually like having that much space taken up by furniture. So that's one way that I've prototyped with other people, but for the most part I prototype with myself because I have all the time in the world on my projects, right? I want to trial something. There's usually some kind of obstacle that I foresee in my mind going, this might be a problem. And before I go spend $1,000 to $10,000 on this really expensive system, I need to know that that isn't going to be a problem, that I won't regret the whole thing because of X, Y, Z. And so because of those things, you can prototype things. So for instance, now I have these shelves here, which are anchored to the wall, but I used to have two half shelves that could stack together to make about this tall of a shelf. And a lot of times I'd move those around to represent counters, or you could make a half wall out of it, right? You could do all kinds of things to go, do I actually like this? Does that, you know, disrupt the flow of things? Is it too bulky? Is there too much going on? Would I rather have something lighter? Or would I rather get rid of half of my stuff to have something that's just like a counter as opposed to a full wall cabinet? And so I use prototyping everywhere. I'm going to show you a couple of places that I either currently have prototype things in, or I have replaced them now with the full systems. And for various reasons, some will still be the prototype and some will still, or will have finished out as the final system. And I think it's a great technique to use, especially if you're starting on a dime and you really can't afford a lot of extra money into these systems and you want to test it out. It's a great way to go. And I highly recommend that in your own house, when you're doing your own organizing projects, that you go ahead and prototype things. If you want to spend $300 on containers, you know, this is the kind of cheaper containers, but you could spend $300 on a pantry. And you could spend as much as $3,000 on a pantry. It just depends on what all you need, how many containers, and how fancy you're gonna go. But if you can tolerate mismatched bins, then you can usually find something in your house to start there. Cardboard's easy to come by these days because of Amazon. And shoe boxes make great sized organizers. I very frequently will use shoe box or the kind of container that drinks come in, you know, the kind of shallow box base. I use those a lot too. Japanese candy boxes are like the best. I don't know, I got one here actually. This isn't necessarily the best example. This is green tea chocolates. And so it's a Japanese candy box. This one's a tin, so it opens the opposite way. And inside of it, I keep sticky notes. So actually Post-it notes, markers, that kind of thing. And so I used to work for a company that was Japanese owned, and we had an awful lot of business dealings with Japan and various suppliers, and it's just a custom that they bring candy a lot of times. And so at the end, there's candy boxes, and I don't know, it's pretty crazy. I'm gonna have to show you some more. So these are also Japanese candy boxes. These are the bases, and I think this is why, you know, Marie Kondo will talk a lot about this, just using boxes you have. And their candy boxes are unbelievably perfect for this kind of thing. But here's another, I think this is a base. I think there was a green top maybe. And so it holds Sharpies for me, and it in one of these little organizers that I think came from the Container Store. I have a longer one, but they won't both fit in that way. And so those work as nice little trays inside of drawers. And then this one is just laudable how perfect it is. So it is the base of a candy box as well. I think these were maybe bean candies. And it perfectly fits my project folders. So the unused, empty project folders I'm keeping in this box. And now their boxes are not always, you know, completely pretty everywhere, but I've just found that somehow, even though we don't use the same size paper in the US as they do in Japan, somehow they made their candy boxes work perfect for our paper. So I love it. And coworkers gave me their leftover boxes for the longest time, so I have quite a few, but I imagine this is the end of my Japanese candy boxes. But they're great drawer organizers, so I kept a lot of those around. And I have another tin as well, like this candy tin, it's also like a study guide box thing, and it has pins and different kinds of flags, Post-its, and it's just great. It's great. So if you're gonna hang on to containers, I highly recommend not hanging on to the big ones. They're rarely really reusable in a lot of spaces. The biggest one I would go for is, let's see, I think they're called the extra large sweater boxes from Container Store. But even that is starting to get too big. Shoe boxes down, those are useful. Because even if you are a macro level organizer, we need trays too. You know, I might just dump my pins and stuff all mixed together in here, but still having some bounds for it is incredibly useful. So highly recommend that you prototype things first. And then a lot of times, if you can find a nice box like this, or cell phone boxes or iPhone boxes, they're getting worse, but they used to be phenomenal. If they don't have stuff glued to the bottom of them, they're pretty good. Some of them are too tall. But that type of box can make a really nice sub-organizer, things inside of drawers. You don't have to look at them. Like, I may not necessarily want them out on these shelves, but if it's inside a drawer, it's perfect. It works great, so highly recommend that. Prototype things first. I want to show you how I use prototyping to organize. So this is a concept. I really wish I could hold this still. I have to hold it so far away in order to record. Okay, anyway. This is a concept we use in engineering where you'll build something that's not necessarily as sturdy as you need to see whether it can serve the purpose, or maybe it's not able to handle as many runs or uses as your ideal product, but you want to find out whether it can do the job, at least in concept, right? So I'm just going to open up, and we're going to start in here, even though I won't be able to keep this open. How's that? Use the shower curtain. Stay. All right. Okay, so I have used boxes. These are check boxes, right? So that's the top and the bottom of a check box. And then I used to have a candy box, a Japanese candy box here. And I traded it out because I have toothbrushes and that's a pick. Stuff that's like soap and you know, the actual toothpaste, and then the toothbrush will drip soap off of it and drip water off of it, and so it gets wet. So I initially trialed it with a box, and then if you can see, there's a lot of wasted space with this one, but it does at least still hold the items I needed it to hold. And that's what I replaced it with. So I often will use cardboard boxes, or like this is actually a little planter. Let me see if I can show that a little bit better. So this is a planter, very small one, that happens to fit really well in the shelf. And then you can see in many places I'm using these plastic drinking cups to contain some things. And sometimes I'll go through, this is a good example of one that I haven't been able to find containers that are nearly as appropriately sized to fit in here. Even this one, I really don't find anything that's that footprint and then that tall. This is easier to find though than these. The shallower ones, which I like for, you know, I can see my floss. But this is a great example of prototyping for organizing. So you test out, you know, can I organize this stuff in a way that works for me? And I've been using this for years because I haven't been able to find containers, better containers that really fit this footprint, because as you can see, I really do have it pretty full. There's not a lot of rearranging that can be done. Sorry, I can't hold it still. Not a lot of rearranging that can be done and still fit everything that I need it to fit. So yeah, I hope you find this helpful. I'll try to show you a couple other examples, because sometimes we actually do have containers in our house already in other places that we can borrow short term, or we didn't like them there anyway, and we just get leftover containers. And so sometimes you can just use containers that were previously used for a different purpose and try them out before you go and buy something fancier. Okay, I've showed my hall closet here before, but what you wouldn't have known is that I bought these initially for scrapbooking. And so they were, yeah, there we go. They were initially for scrapbooking, and then I've repurposed them for, you can see most of them are medicine. Yeah, actually they're all medicine. So I have specialized migraine medicine and generic cold medicine, that kind of thing. And then these two are my monthly prescriptions, because some of them are backfilled, or, you know, they give you like 30 or 90-day supply, and so you have extra ones that you're going to use later. And then just emergency medicines over here. Another one is down here. I actually, you can see they're overflowing a bit now, but I used to not have anything or have some cardboard boxes in here, and then I found these guys at Target, and that's what I've replaced them with. Because they can squish and move better, then I can pull them out from beside each other and kind of move them. Oh, of course I lost my angle there. But I can move them in and out of what is otherwise a kind of tight space, right? And they're very long. I'm not sure why things are flying off the edges, but yeah, that's one example. Alright, another example is my bedroom closet. So this one is after I've already implemented the final organizing system, but this was a very expensive system. It's Elfa. And what I didn't know is if I could actually put my entire wardrobe in there. And so originally, and I think I've got some pictures on my blog, so feel free to check out the whole makeover in there. because I had originally a closet-made, like, standalone system thing. I had the shoe ones, and I had these tall, like, sweater stacker deals. I don't know what you want to call them, but I've had them forever, and I find them useful in so many places. They've been side tables for me. They've been, like, sides of shelves. I've done all kinds of things with them, so I find them immensely useful, and I haven't gotten rid of them so far, but I just used them temporarily and had them vertical here, kind of blocking off that section, like you can see the drawers basically do, right? See if we can, where's my camera? So I have limited access to the shoes over here because of the drawers. And because of that, I needed to test whether that would just annoy the crap out of me or not. So I went ahead and put that closet-made system on this side, used it with all the things that are kept in the drawers now to see whether I could actually fit my whole wardrobe in. And what you'll find out if you read the whole blog is I used to have clothes in here, and I still have the dresser because there's nowhere for it to go right now, but it's empty. So all of my clothes now fit in there, which would mean I have more space in my bedroom. So that's another way I've used, or temporary organizing, prototyping I like to call it, prototyping to organize in my house in different spaces. Alright, here's another one. I'm going to have to point it away from my face to show you, but up here you can see there's these ball jar boxes, and I still haven't found anything better for holding my towels, so that's where I keep my extra towels. But in previous posts and videos, I think you'll see that I replaced these two bins here. I had one deep one, and I couldn't access stuff on the bottom, and it was very heavy to pull it out and off balance and just not pleasant. So I replaced that with two stacked ones. So that was just a matter of buying something that would fit in the dimensions with about the same volume of that other container. So I didn't really have cardboard, but before I had that plastic one, I actually had cardboard there too. So I often use like a shallow box like that, that size, to organize stuff with, to see what I'm going to want in the end. So that's another great example of prototyping to organize. So using cardboard is a great way to save yourself money. You can use it long term, or you can use it short term until you get the money to spend on containers that are prettier or flashier or just a little bit better suited for what you're trying to accomplish. So you can use cardboard until you can afford the fancier containers, the more expensive systems, or you can just keep it forever, because behind closed doors, does that really matter? For the Elsa, it mattered because the drawers functioned better. I had bins. I actually used those orange bins from the hall closet in that closet-made system, but they have a lot of drag because of the seams on the bottom, I think, were snagging, and just it had a lot of pull, and then it was just a pain to get that out, and then it would go too far out, and yeah, so having real drawers is a huge advantage there. But behind your cabinet doors, does the fact that that box say ball and have some other print on it really affect anything? No, it works fine. So if I find something that's better, I'll replace it, but for now, it's perfectly acceptable.